Welcome to Through the Bible with Pastor Michael, a podcast from First Baptist Church in Mustang, Oklahoma. Here's Pastor Michael.
Looking today at Jeremiah 37, 38, and 39 as we are continuing our walk through this Old Testament prophet, which here on day 9 of our reading is familiar to us. I mean, there's some new details each day of what goes on, but the overall thrust of this message, this book, this prophet, is all about the coming invasion, and today we see that unfolding. So the first thing we see today is that Jeremiah speaks again of the imminent fall of Jerusalem. It's not only going to happen, it's not only going to happen soon, it's now imminent, and it's right on the verge of coming to fruition. We then see that Jeremiah is placed in prison. We'll come back and talk about why that matters here in just a minute. The third thing we see is that the officials put Jeremiah in a cistern, and he is rescued by an Ethiopian eunuch. And then we see now that the act begins to take place. The Babylonians break through the city walls and they invade the people there of Jerusalem. And then a fifth thing that we see, just going through the story of the narrative today, that Zedekiah and his sons are taken in capture, and then his sons are killed. So all that has been talked about, prophesied about, warned about, now is taking place. A few applications that I want us to consider today, even in our life and our world where we are. Number one, not all ministries have the same results, even if the faithfulness is the same. The Lord has different purposes for certain ministries. When you think about in the New Testament, Peter preaches the gospel and 3,000 people believe. Stephen speaks the truth and he is stoned. The difference in those two is not that they preached a different gospel. The difference is not that one was faithful and was not faithful. Same gospel, they were both faithful. The Lord gave one the grace to preach and receive converts. The Lord gave another to share the truth and die with grace. We see it in Hebrews 11, that great chapter known to us as the Hall of Faith, as it just speaks of person after person after person who by faith did what the Lord called them to do, by faith stood strong, by faith fulfilled their ministries. And some of them escaped the sword, it says. Others of them died by the sword. And the difference was not that one was more faithful than the other. The difference is not that one was smarter than the other. The difference was that the Lord has different purposes in the ministries of his people. Not all ministries have the same results, even if the faithfulness is the same. This is why it's a really bad thing for churches to get in the comparison game, or for ministries or ministers to get in the comparison game. The Lord gives some people the strength and the grace to experience great fruit from the ministry. For other people, for other churches, their ministries, it's a different ministry. Jeremiah's ministry was one of warning. Jeremiah's ministry was one of judgment that was coming. Jeremiah's ministry was not like Peter's was when Peter preached and saw so many people converted. The Lord is sovereign over that, and that's why comparison always is the wrong way to do it. Number two, we are to fulfill what God has called us to do no matter the results. Just do what God's called us to do. Be faithful where you are, be trusting where you are, and whatever those results are, they are. You have to leave that in the hands of the Lord. You have to trust him. And, at the end of all things, Peter is rewarded for his faithfulness for preaching, and Stephen's rewarded in heaven for his faithfulness in dying in faith. In Hebrews 11, as I talked about a moment ago, those people have eternal rewards for their faithfulness, and you just have to do what is right, no matter the results. Number three, let's remind ourselves of this application. God is working all things together for good. God is working all things together for good. Sometimes that's hard to see. Sometimes we don't recognize how that's happening, but God is working all things together for good. And we have to trust Him. We trust His Word. We trust His character. We trust that His mercies are new every morning. We trust that His faithfulness is great. And so we rest and live out the application that we really believe that God is working all things together for good. A fourth application is that heavenly accounts are not settled on earth. Heavenly accounts are not settled on earth. What I mean by that is there are people who on earth seem to be lying and cheating and stealing and treating people wrong, and it seems like they're winning. But earth isn't the final place where accounts are settled. Conversely, there are people who are faithful and honest and doing their best to honor the Lord, and it seems like they're losing. But again, heavenly accounts are not settled on earth. The Lord will do that on that day. And so we just understand on this day, sometimes it seems like the unrighteous win, and sometimes it seems like the godly lose. But understand, accounts are not being settled here on this day. Accounts are settled on that day. And on that day, 2 Corinthians 4 tells us that our worst day on earth is going to feel light and temporary. That's how great heaven will be for God's people. And for those who rejected the gospel and rejected God's people, while they may have seemed to have gotten by with that on earth, the truth is they will not have gotten by with anything. And so we just live out the assurance that heavenly accounts are not settled on earth. And then a fifth application, every season of life needs to be met with trust in the Lord. If you're in a season of blessing, trust the Lord. If you're in a season of grief, trust the Lord. If you're in a season of persecution, trust the Lord. If you're in a season where ministry is flourishing with lots of evident fruit, trust the Lord. If you're in a season of ministry and it feels like you're just kind of stuck in mud and you're doing your best to serve the Lord and to serve God's people and just feels like nothing's happening, let's remind ourselves that every season of life needs to be met with trust in the Lord. We're not responsible for the results. We're responsible for being faithful. We're faithful. Let the Lord take care of the fruitfulness. Let's do all things for His name's sake, not our own. Let's entrust ourselves to His care. And whatever season of life you're in, meet that season with faithfulness. And then finally, Isaiah 23. Quick summary, this is where Isaiah prophesies regarding the land of Tyre. He speaks of what's going to happen to them. He speaks of what's going to happen after judgment comes to them. And he gives this prophecy regarding the people and the land and even the of Tyre, and then the results of what's going to happen even years down the road. All right. So as Jeremiah has taught us, we warn people, and even if no one believes or responds, we keep warning people. And even if we ourselves are persecuted, we warn people, and then we just entrust ourselves to the care of the Lord.